And we're live.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stuart Bambino, and I'm the president and CEO of the Santa Rosa Chamber of Commerce. And we are thrilled today to have our assemblyperson, Rebecca Bauer-Kahan, join us for half an hour or so, maybe a little longer, for some question and answers. And so just please put those in the chat box, and we'll be answering those toward the end of the comment section. I want to thank also Greg Sousa from the Contra Costa County Association of Realtors. They were so gracious in sponsoring today's event. Without sponsors such as the Contra Costa County Association of Realtors, this presentation would not be possible. Again, thrilled to have our assembly member. This is the first time we've done this, and we're absolutely thrilled to have our assembly member, Rebecca Bauer-Kahan, speaking today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Greg Sousa for some comments and introductions.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you so much for having us. The Santa Rosa Chamber of Commerce has been a wonderful partner for the Contra Costa Association of Realtors, and we're thrilled to be here. It's an honor to be here. And just want to tell you a little bit about the Contra Costa Association of Realtors. This year is our 100th anniversary. And I should introduce myself. I'm the 100th anniversary president. It's only for 1 year. It's a 3.5-year commitment, but I've been on the board now for 5 years, and just been thrilled to be with so many wonderful business leaders and our elected officials. It's so valuable. One of the things that I want to tell you a little bit about Contra Costa Association of Realtors is we're not just a trade organization. We are about the communities that we serve. And I know that we're tight on time today, so I don't want to take up too much of things, but one of the things that we're very proud of, we're going to be soon giving a check away. And it was in conjunction with the California Association of Realtors with the Richmond Community Fund. So out in our West County is a nonprofit organization that is going to help minorities and people of African-American descent or African-American communities, and getting them into housing. And what they do is they help with the down payment assistance. And when they go to either sell the house or refinance, that goes back into the fund to help somebody else get into a project. And these are homes that need rehabilitation. So they're able to build an equity as well going forward. It's a wonderful program. So with the Housing Affordability Fund that's paid for by realtors, we're able to get a $50,000 check. We're going to be handing them out for that later on, actually in the next few weeks. So we're very excited. It's something that we've been working on for a while. So that's just a taste of some of the things that we do for our communities. And but let me introduce the lady of the hour. And we have a wonderful relationship with our elected officials, and particularly with Assemblywoman Rebecca Bauer-Kahan. And she has been gracious with her time with the association, hearing about what matters for our property owners, property rights, renters, how we can help get people into housing and build their generational wealth, as we hear about all the time. So let me tell you just a little bit about this incredible woman, because she truly is. She was elected in 2018 to serve the 16th Assembly District, which includes Dublin, Lafayette, Livermore, Orinda, Pleasanton, San Ramon, Walnut Creek, Danville, Alamo, and Moraga. And I am a Danville resident myself. Rebecca is an accomplished attorney and big time. Let me just highlight just a few of these. Environmental advocate, community volunteer, professor, obviously a mother, Bay Area native, dedicated her career and personal time to improving our communities. And she's worked on complex problems, protecting civil rights, ensuring everyone has the opportunity to succeed. Let me take it a step further. Also specializes in major corporations with environmental laws and regulations, which we very much need this day and age. She's also worked with tech companies, intellectual property, copyright, trade secret theft, another big one that we're dealing with. But here's where the rubber meets the road, okay? She has been involved in civil rights, immigration, homelessness, domestic violence, and she is the granddaughter of refugees that came to the United States to escape the Holocaust, which just hits home in every single way. and it's shaped her perspective, inspiring others to be a wonderful part of the community legal services throughout. So you can tell she's very, very dedicated. She also helps refugees, immigrants that have been affected by past presidents, as I'm sure you all are very familiar with. Last several years, as I finish up, Rebecca has taught appellate law and been in legal research writing at Santa Clara University, Golden Gate University, and Bay Area Public Schools. So you can tell this woman is incredibly, incredibly qualified, and we love having this relationship with her. Please welcome to the digital stage, Miss Assemblywoman Rebecca Bauer-Kahan.
Wow. Well, thank you, Greg, for that introduction. It was very generous. I think it made me sound really old, but but I really do appreciate it. It's been an honor to serve the community before I was elected, and now as the assembly member, and the partnership that I have with the San Ramon Chamber, the chambers throughout my district, the realtors, and all of you tuning in is really what makes this job so incredible. We are public servants, and I get to represent this incredible community and work with each and every one of you to make sure that I am helping make us better, right, in every way, and make opportunities better for everyone. And that's such a gift. So thank you both for having me here, for being my partners every day in the work that we all do to improve our communities. So as you heard, I am the assembly member for the 16th Assembly District, which incorporates San Ramon, La Miranda, Walnut Creek, and then the rest of the Tri-Valley. And so it's fun to be with you here in San Ramon. My office is in San Ramon, right at Bishop Branch. And so this is near and dear to my heart because we are often, as a team, frequenting the businesses that are a part of this chamber on our lunch hour and the like. So I want to tell you just a little bit about me and what we've accomplished in this year. We work really hard as a team, both here in the district and in Sacramento, to make sure that we're representing the values of this district, making sure that California is creating opportunity for all and a future for all of our children that they deserve. And I just want to highlight really briefly how incredible this community has been throughout this last year and a half plus of this pandemic. It was really hard when our world shut down for all of us in different ways. And the thing that really brought me through it was seeing each and every one of you stepping up to meet the needs of our community, working with us as the government to make sure that nobody was being left behind. And that was so inspiring to me. We had the honor of doing a series where we celebrated a lot of the youth in our district who were stepping up and raising funds for food and making sure that people's food was delivered to them if that's what they needed. And it really was incredible. I knew this was an incredible community, but then I had the honor of seeing it. And I know all of you did too. So I want to thank you for that, because it really did make this year and a half a little less difficult, although it was obviously incredibly difficult and continues to be. So a little bit about what I do in Sacramento. I serve on 5 different committees. I'm on the Banking and Finance Committee, Environmental Safety and Toxic Materials, which, as you heard from Greg, is a little bit of my background doing environmental regulatory work. I sit on the Privacy and Consumer Protection Committee, Public Safety, and the newest committee I joined, which is Utilities and Energy, where I make sure that we are working as hard as we can to provide you with reliable, affordable, and safe energy. I also serve as the Assistant Speaker Pro Tem for the Assembly, which is a really fun job. And maybe I'm letting my nerdiness out when I say that, but my job is to run the Assembly. So there's 2 of us that do it, and we run the Assembly floor when we go there to debate and vote on all of the legislation. And one of the reasons I've enjoyed this job so much, and especially at this moment in history, is that we in Sacramento have an incredibly robust dialogue on issues that are incredibly divisive in our society, and yet we always do it with dignity and respect for one another, hearing each other's voices. And it's my job to make sure that happens. And that's really an honor, because it's something that we need more of right now in politics. And for those of you that will come up and see us in Sacramento, you'll get to see that. And I think it's something that we are really proud of as a legislature, and that I am proud of having the honor to do. So talking a little bit about COVID and where we are now and where we've been through this pandemic, I know how tough this has been on families. I am a mom of 3 young kids who were learning in my living room for a very long time. I know many of us have lost loved ones to this pandemic. We've lost jobs, and our kids have suffered with their mental illness. And I just want to say that we remain focused on solving all of those problems. But I want to highlight the heroes here. As I mentioned, this community came together in ways that was really inspirational. But from our healthcare workers who sacrificed so much and showed up every day to be there for the sick, to those of you who rallied for the food pantries and adapted to fill the needs in our community, and everybody else, that kindness is really why we are where we are today. We are lucky to be where we are. Our vaccination rates here are very high, and we continue to get more community members protected. As many of you may know, today's a big day in my family because as the mother of 3 kids under 12, they all are eligible now to get the vaccine. And we will be doing that as a family in the coming days as it becomes available in our pharmacies and at our county sites. But I want to remind you that in addition to getting all of our 5 to 12-year-olds vaccinated who are now eligible, which is critical to increasing our herd immunity, protecting our children and our community, I want to remind all of you that boosters are available, and that's really important for those who need it. So if it's been more than 6 months since you had your shot and you're 65 or older, or you're 18 to 65 and have underlying health issues, or you're at risk as a result of your job or living situation, then the CDC has recommended that you go and get that booster, and those are readily available. And anyone who had the Johnson & Johnson is also eligible, I should say. But for anyone looking for a vaccine appointment, whether it be for your 5 to 12-year-old or for that booster, you can go to myturn.ca.gov to get that appointment, or you can go to the Contra Costa County Public Health website and get an appointment. And all of that is critical. We really have been excelling. We have here in Contra Costa County, over 84% of people are fully vaccinated, and even more have had their first dose, getting really close to 90% with that 12 and up. But now we got to get our 5 to 12-year-olds in those numbers. So it's an exciting week for my family and for all of us that we're able to spread the vaccine to more individuals and protect them. I want to talk a little bit about how the budget has been a way that we've worked through the COVID response. When we first entered the pandemic, we faced what we thought was an enormous deficit, and we made some really hard cuts. But luckily, our economy rallied better than anybody expected. And last year, we had fully eliminated that $53 billion deficit, and we had a $72 million surplus. So it was a really exciting time to be able to do some of the incredible things that California needed us to do. And one of those things was to replenish our rainy day fund. Originally, when we were facing that enormous deficit, this was the moment that we had been saving for, and we did tap into our rainy day fund. And then when we saw that surplus, it was time to replenish it. And so we did. We put more into our rainy day fund. We also paid down some of our debts, which is a really critical way to be prepared for the years to come if we do have a downturn. But we also did some incredible things for California, setting the national standard for protecting public health and ensuring that we'd have a broad base of economic recovery. And as you may have heard in the news, we expect a surplus again next year. So our economic recovery is well on its way, but we know we have continued work to do. We were able to do the Golden State Stimulus, which put money directly in the hands of the Californians that needed it most, returning those excess tax dollars to the individuals who it could really, really help. We also did $4 billion in grants to small businesses and nonprofit institutions. We heard from a lot of our institutions and our small businesses in the Tri-Valley about the incredible need to get those grants out, to get loans out to individuals because of the closures and the impact that it had on our businesses and our institutions, that we wanted to be there at the end of the pandemic. And hopefully that was helpful and continues to be helpful. Those grants are still coming the way of small businesses. But we just continue to be focused on how we support our community, our small businesses, but also our workers. We know that there's a critical need for workers right now. And so we put $1.5 billion into a jobs initiative and workforce development, getting workers trained up for the jobs where we need them. We want California to continue to be the economic engine that it is, the 5th largest economy in the world. And our workforce is why it is the way it is. So we will continue to invest in our future. And that means our schools too. So we've made historic investments in education, which was really exciting. $9 billion, more than $9 billion in ongoing funding to our schools. I was at the forefront of the conversation about getting our kids back into school. I believe so deeply in the education that our California children receive. It's got to be everything they deserve because they are our future. And so in addition to that, we were able to create 3.7 million college accounts for low-income Californians. We want every Californian to have the opportunity to succeed and to be a part of this incredible economic engine. And we know our colleges are a way to do that. It's the greatest pathway out of poverty. And with that, we also focused on our higher education institutions. One of the things that makes California and this district so incredible is we're in the backyard of Cal. We have 2 national labs in the Tri-Valley. We have Cal State East Bay. We are educating the future, and that talent turns around and creates that economic engine. So we made incredible investments in our CSUs and our UCs, bringing them up to where we want them to be, making deferred payment, doing deferred maintenance that we'd been putting off for too long in our institutions, and making sure that they're set up. But having been at home with my children for many months, but having the privilege of being able to do my job at times online, although we were still in the Capitol a lot, we knew that childcare was one of the reasons women were leaving the workforce in greater numbers than we ever wanted to see. And so we made incredible investments in childcare. Universal TK, which is huge, not only as a childcare solution for many families, but we know it is what sets our kids up for success and will reduce the school to prison pipeline by making sure kids succeed in school. But we also were able to expand opportunities for childcare slots for those that need it and raise rates for our childcare providers so they'll continue to thrive in the months and years to come, because we have to have places for our kids to go if we want women to re-enter the workforce and to be equal members of this incredible economy. So I will remain focused on that because I know firsthand what it means to be trying to do a really difficult job while taking care of 3 kids who are learning on Zoom. As some of you who may have met with me at the time would know, recess was really exciting in my house, but we did it. We're back in school and where we need to be, and we need to keep them there. So again, I'll put a pitch in for those vaccines that are available today. One of the projects that has been near and dear to my heart is the Valley Link project. Transportation is so key. Over the last 1.5 years, we've heard less about the traffic, but it's coming back. As those of us that go into the office know, it is already back and most people are still working from home. So it's something we have remained focused on even during this pandemic, knowing that people would go back to commuting and that we would not want to be sitting in those 3-hour commutes that people were used to prior to this pandemic. And Valley Link, which is the train that would run between the Central Valley and the Dublin Pleasanton BART station, is a really key aspect of that. Getting people off of our highways and into those trains will free up some of that space on the highway and will have impacts throughout the region in ensuring that we have clean transportation, which is obviously incredibly important for climate change, but also for quality of life. The New York Times has repeatedly done studies on the worst commutes in the country, and top 2 were those commutes from the San Joaquin Valley over the pass through the Tri-Valley. So we really need to do that to increase access to public transportation and improve those commutes. Housing, homelessness and housing continue to be top of mind for me, and I know for many of the people paying attention and many Californians. We focused in 2 ways on homelessness and housing this year: on prevention of homelessness, which is really critical. If somebody loses their house, they'll stay homeless for an average of 14 months. And that's probably on the low end. And so if we can prevent that homelessness, it's a real win for us. And so we put $2.6 billion in federal funding into keeping tenants in their homes and preventing that homelessness when people lost their jobs and couldn't go to work, as many of you know. But we also put an additional $1.75 billion into Project Roomkey, which is a really exciting partnership with our counties, where we provide the roof over the head through already existing motels by housing individuals. And then the counties come in and they provide wraparound services. And we've seen great success in these programs because we can get people what they need in services, we can get them housed, and many people are moving on to permanent housing, which is the goal when we have homelessness support. So we got to keep that up. And I want to give a shout out to the Realtors program, because our goal is always to get someone into their own home permanently, to make sure that they're thriving and building that wealth that each of us that owns a home is doing. And that's getting harder and harder as our housing prices go up. So we all need to be doing our part, both in the public sector and in the private sector. Wildfires and drought. This is what keeps me up at night. Wildfires. Most of us that live in this district live on the wildland urban interface. Wildfires are really scary. Not only are they scary and threatening to our communities, but they are one of the largest, probably the largest source of emissions right now, impacting climate change. We have to prevent these wildfires, and we need to do everything we can to prevent them and to stop them. And so one of the things that we were able to do, which is really exciting, is invest in wildfire prevention by our East Bay Regional Park District. So when we have large fires like the Dixie Fire and the Calder Fire, a lot of our fire resources go to those large fires. Well, then when we have spot fires during those high fire days, we need air resources to put those out. And most people don't know that it's the East Bay Regional Park District that is here to provide mutual aid to put out those fires in our local community when our other air resources are out, and they needed a new helicopter. And so I thought this was a great way for us to support fire prevention in our community, to make sure those air resources were available. So we put out those spot fires. It is way better than allowing them to grow out of control, obviously, and threaten our community and threaten the well-being of everybody who lives here. So we were able to get $3.5 million for the East Bay Regional Park District to upgrade their air resources and make sure they're available to put out those fires. And we think that's really important and will be a big win for the community in the fire seasons to come. Can we all just take one moment and celebrate all the rain we've had? It really is making me happy. But on wildfires and on drought, obviously we're constantly worried about drought. How are we going to adapt to our changing climate and make sure that we have the water resources we need? And we continue to remain focused on that and will in the years to come. We just had a drought town hall, and it's available on my website if you want more details on drought. But on wildfire, I also introduced several pieces of legislation focused on utility-caused wildfire, which is something that's really critically important. One of the things that I believe we need is more enforcement of our already existing regulations that should be keeping us safe when it comes to vegetation management and some of those causes of these largest fires. And so we're working with the Alameda County District Attorney's Office to introduce legislation that would say that not only the PUC is responsible for enforcing those regulations, but also our local district attorneys. Let's bring that home. Let's make sure we have local accountability to make sure that we are safe and that our energy is coming to us reliably, but also in a safe way. So that bill will continue to move next year, and I think it's a really important way to keep us safer. I also worked with the San Ramon Valley Fire District right in your backyard on an important thing that your community has done that I think every community should do, which is they've passed an ordinance that when PG&E comes in and does work that could light a fire during red flag days, the fire department gets notice of that work. It's really critical because if a fire is ignited during that hot work, it is the fire department's responsibility to put it out. And so if they know it's happening, they can be pre-positioned because minutes matter during those red flag days and when it's windy. And if they're ready, if something happens, we are better off because they can get that fire out fast. And so now you are going to get that notice in San Ramon, but other communities are not. And so we want to take that statewide and say, whenever our utilities are doing this hot work that could ignite a fire in communities like ours, on the wildland urban interface, that on red flag days, we're going to know when that work is happening and our fire departments are going to be prepared. Pre-positioning, which has happened in the last years, has been really critical to some of our successes in fighting fires, and we need to continue to support it in every way. So that bill didn't make it, but we're going to continue to push it forward, again, with the support of Chief Meyer, who is an incredible person who serves your community every day. So a little bit about what we're doing and bringing home right here to the community. It's really important that with this budget surplus, we saw some of this money coming back. These are your tax dollars that create the surplus, and we want to make sure that they're working to improve our community. So with that, we did a couple of local projects that we're really excited about. We're trying out a safe route to school project in Lafayette that's really exciting. How can we improve traffic safety for students? We were able to bring in some money to get that project off the ground. We did two projects focused on opening up our open space to our local communities, one in your backyard in Dublin on the Iron Horse Trail, so it'll be accessible to all of you from San Ramon through that exciting new overpass that's coming your way to Dublin. But it'll improve that active transportation corridor, so you'll be able to bike further and hopefully closer to Dublin, Pleasanton, BART, and also enjoy the open space that comes with that project. I was really excited to get 6 pieces of legislation that I'm incredibly proud of signed into law by the governor this year. We did a couple bills, again, focused on our businesses and our consumers that were hardest hit by the pandemic. One, which I'm really proud of. As a former litigator, I understand what it means to have litigation happen, especially for our small businesses who don't have HR departments and fancy lawyers. And so we passed a bill requiring mandatory mediation for any claims for paid family leave. We believe this is the best thing for workers and for our small businesses. These mediators are through the department. They are free of charge, but they'll make sure the worker gets that right to paid family leave while ensuring that our small businesses don't face expensive litigation and just know what the rights are of those workers and are able to give them that leave that they need. So that bill was signed into law, and we're excited to see how that mediation program works. And hopefully it'll be a great boon for our small businesses and protecting them. Secondly, we did a bill that was really critical as a result of the pandemic. Something we focused on in the banking committee is our underbanked and our unbanked populations. Not everyone has access to the banking that you and I may have. And those populations turned to money transfer apps like PayPal and Venmo to be their source of banking, but they are keeping their money there. So when the rent comes due, that's where the rent is going to come from. And it turned out that those apps were not regulated in the same way and didn't require the same customer service that our banks did. So your money could be stuck there. You forgot your password, for example, and it could be a week before you could get access to changing your password or get the customer service you needed. And a week when your rent is due could mean homelessness or keeping that roof over your head. And so we passed a very simple law that merely requires that these money transfer apps that hold your hard-earned money provide you with a place to call and get the service you deserve. And we hope that'll be game-changing for the Californians who are most vulnerable, who are using these apps and need that money at their fingertips. And again, it's their money, so they should have access to it. Something that has been incredibly important to me, and as many of you may know, I am a champion for reproductive rights and freedom and for women. And here in California, the largest threat to reproductive rights for women is the danger that currently exists when going into our reproductive health clinics. For those of you that frequent downtown Walnut Creek, you'll often see huge protests outside of the clinic while people are going in and trying to get access to both abortions, but also routine health care. And so we passed a law really protecting the safety of both the workers and the women going into those clinics to make sure that they can get their constitutional right to health care is protected in a meaningful way, making sure they're safe at every moment. And we'll continue to make sure that we provide comprehensive health care in a safe way to every woman in California. And I did a couple bills on gender equity. I mentioned this earlier when I was talking about women leaving the workforce. We did a bill extending out a non-binary option to those on death certificates. Gender equity is incredibly important to me and something we will continue to work on in my office. Lastly, we were able to save Tesla Park, an incredible resource out in the Tri-Valley, which will become a state park available to all of us to go hiking and enjoy. It's a historic piece of land with the old mining town of Tesla with Native American artifacts on it. Each of us will have access to it through a new state park that I'm really excited will be put into place in the years to come. My office continues to be really focused on our landmark piece of legislation that we moved last year, which has not made it to the finish line, AB 988, which will provide an alternative to those calling 911 who are in mental health crisis. So if you're in crisis, you shouldn't have to call the police. It's not a law enforcement matter, it's a health matter. So we're moving it out of the 911 system, putting it into its own system in 988. You'll get a trained person who will be able to deal with someone in mental health crisis, and you'll get a healthcare response if you need a response on the ground. And that has been an incredible effort that is really, I'm so proud of, because not only do we have broad support from all the cities, including those in the Tri-Valley and San Ramon, but also bipartisan support. And we really know that this is a change that needs to happen. We need to be providing better comprehensive mental health care and access into it for all Californians. And that's hopefully going to happen in the months to come as it's sitting in the Senate right now. So that's what we've been up to. Been very busy, as you can tell, both in Sacramento and locally. I want to give a shout out to my incredible team here in San Ramon that works diligently every day to provide access to state resources for all of our constituents. And know that if you need help with any state agency, we're here to help you, whether it be to get your unemployment benefits from EDD, and we could have a whole conversation about that and how you shouldn't need to call me to get access to the benefits that you're entitled to, but please do if you need it, because you deserve it, and we want to help you get that. And we've been able to help many constituents get those benefits faster. So do call us, the Franchise Tax Board, DMV. We're here to assist all of our constituents with state resources. So you can reach us look me up on the web. We're easy to find, but we really want to be here to serve each and every one of you. And I hope that what you've heard today and what you'll hear through the Q&A is that we're working diligently to make sure that we're representing the values of this district and making it the incredible place that it is to live and raise a family. And I think we're going to go to questions. I think Katie's going to, and we may have some questions in the chat. There's also a Q&A function. If you have questions, go ahead and put that in the Q&A function.
Yes, please, to the audience, please feel free to use the Q&A function to drop in questions. We've got some pre-submitted ones that we're going to start with. So the first one, what has been your proudest accomplishment as an assembly member?
Such a hard question. They say you're not supposed to fall in love with your bills because you might lose them, but I fall in love with every single one of them. But I think it has really been, in the last year, one of the things that I worked so hard on is this mental health bill. And mental health is something that touches, I would say, every single one of us, whether personally or someone we love or someone we know. And each of us has struggled with getting people the care they need. And that's especially true right now. It has been harder in the pandemic for people to get access to the therapists and the resources they need. And it's an area, surprisingly, that doesn't have incredible leadership in the Capitol. I'd say Senator Bell was an incredible leader in this space, but he termed out. Senator Eggman and Senator Weiner continue to lead in this space. But in the Assembly, we really haven't had the advocacy and the voice in moving forward mental health issues, and to become that voice and to really move forward this incredible piece of legislation that would move so much out of the law enforcement realm and into the healthcare realm that deserves to be in the healthcare realm has been really an incredible thing. And, it also is an incredible, so 25% of officer involved shootings are people in mental health crisis. So if we can move this out of the public safety realm, it will be a game changer. The largest mental health care provider in the nation right now is the LA County jails. That's a jail. So we've got to fix this system. And it's really been something that I've been proud to work on, but I haven't accomplished it yet, but I promise you we're going to change it.
So before the event, I was talking with Stuart, and he brought up the fact that many businesses are kind of confused with COVID-19 requirements, given that the county and the state, vary, and now we've got some, federal requirements coming for some kinds of businesses. Where can people go locally for kind of more information, and can you speak to that kind of confusion?
So I'm a former regulatory lawyer, so I fully understand the confusion. The regulatory schemes, we're talking about the recent ones with COVID, but it's not unique to that. Between federal and state requirements are really, really complicated. And for large companies that have access to big HR departments, big legal teams, it's doable. But for small businesses, it's really, really hard. And I want to just acknowledge that. And it's something that I'm super cognizant of. And I often bring up in Sacramento. I have a unique experience having, again, worked in this space. And so I'll see these laws and I'll be like, you guys, people actually have to put this into place. And it has to be consistent. Because that's another thing that I found in my practice a lot was you had one regulation that was inconsistent with another regulation. You were supposed to comply with both. And, it was our job to make it happen, but it can be really, really hard. So I hear you and I understand that. And, we did do Senator Ochoa Bogue, who is a new senator, actually moved legislation that was meant to ease some of this, also allowing for online releases of information. So it was less onerous on businesses, but we continue to be focused on it, but it's hard. What is the best resource? I would have to look into that, but I would say whoever's asking, and Stuart mentioned this, but if you want us to find you resources to answer questions, we can help find that, but it may be specific to what issue you're having. So do reach out to our office.
Definitely. Also, the Contra Costa Health Services has a hotline Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and they can help answer some kind of questions about local COVID stuff. And that's 844-729-8410.
You see how amazing the team I get to work with every day is? They know the answers when I don't.
So, Assembly Member, what are your top legislative priorities for next year and kind of beyond?
So it continues to be, I'm an environmental lawyer. I ran for office because I cared deeply about climate change and the climate crisis. And I believe that wildfire prevention is actually one of the strongest ways to do that right now, which is why it's something I talked about. But climate change and solving the climate crisis and doing our part as Californians continues to be top of mind for me. I think another space where that's really critical is as we move into our clean energy future, how do we continue to move forward while providing reliable energy to all of you, which is really important and really challenging. I am an electric car driver and I see how much energy that uses. If we really want everyone to move into clean vehicles, our grid has to be able to handle it. And so we have to build up a clean energy grid that can handle everything that we're going to put on it moving into the future. So the climate crisis and everything that goes along with that, I tend to, as you can hear, again, having been a nuts and bolts regulatory lawyer, I'm always focused on, okay, how are we going to get there? What is that going to look like? And how are we going to do it successfully? So that's a big piece of what we're going to be focused on in the climate realm. I'm going to continue to move forward in this mental health space. It's really an area that I'm really passionate about and I think needs leadership. And I want to continue to lead in. Reproductive rights continue to be a real threat in California. We're going to continue to make sure that we're doing everything we can to provide comprehensive access here in California, but to those that will come to California, which we know is already happening and will continue to happen as things change across the country. We continue to do work in the realm of criminal justice reform. I think it's, having worked as a criminal defense attorney in my practice, I think that there's so much that can be done to reduce recidivism. And why that's so critical is both it increases the outcomes for those leaving our facilities to make sure that they have a real future before them. It also reduces crime. Recidivism means somebody's committing another crime, right? So if we can reduce recidivism, it means less crime and better outcomes. So how do we do that? And so one of the bills that we moved for 2 years, and we're going to move again this year, is a bill that looks at all the money that we're sending to our counties. With realignment, one of the goals was to keep people close to home because we know that keeping people in connection with their communities helps with those recidivism rates. But the state is now funding anti-recidivism programs, making sure people get the access to the education they need in order to not commit another crime. And yet we have no idea whether that money is even being spent. Nevertheless, what it's being spent on and whether the programs it's being spent on are successful. And it is incumbent upon us for every tax dollar of yours we spend to make sure it is being spent responsibly, both for you as taxpayers, but also for the people whose lives we're trying to improve. So we're going to continue to push forward on getting that data and making sure we're making data-driven decisions on those funds so that we can improve our communities and improve outcomes for those coming out of our facilities. So that continues to be a focus for us in our office, and it's really important. But there's just so much to work on. We also continue to be focused on the pandemic recovery, on protecting consumers. Privacy is important. We just had a meeting with my legislative team before this, and we've got some work to do to figure out what we're going to focus on because there's a lot to do.
Greg asked, regarding drought and water resources, are there plans developing in Sacramento for more waterworks projects, i.e. new reservoirs, underground storage, desalination?
Yes. So we are really looking at how we can obviously improve water capture. Money went into that from the budget this year. You may have seen that there's a joint powers authority that is being formed amongst the East Bay water utilities. And actually Senator Glazer and I, right after this, are meeting with our local water districts to talk to them about this exact issue, something that is top of mind for both of us. But, we are continuing to look at how we can build up our reservoirs, access that water. I would also say keep our water tables clean, as those of you, if any of you live in Pleasanton may know, wells had to be shut down because there was too much PFAS in the water. So access to our current supply of water is also really critical, which means keeping that water clean so it's accessible to us. So there's a lot to do on making sure we have access to water, but it is top of mind, and desalination is an important piece of that. So we'll continue to look into how we can do that. It's also a really incredible way as we look at changing our refineries. Two of our refineries now in our local community are turning into renewable sources of energy, which is awesome. It reduces emissions and it does a lot of things. It also costs jobs. It's a less complicated process. It will require less jobs. And so what do we do with those workers to provide good living wage jobs? And desalination is actually an incredible way to do it. It's a lot of similar workforce and they're good paying jobs. So desalination has so many benefits.
Thank Thank you for that. The next question is from Tracy. Tracy asks, Assemblymember, the hospitality industry has been very hard hit during the pandemic, and we have lost more than 32% of our service industry workers and 55% of sales tax revenues. Are you in support of getting business travel moving again and welcomed back in California?
Yeah, let's get everybody vaccinated and moving. I mean, look, I did this job because I love people. So currently the Capitol has been reopened. When we left, we're on recess right now, but it was reopened to 500 people max. But I miss people coming to see me, and I know you miss people coming to see you. And really, once we get those vaccination numbers up and we get this pandemic, under control, let's do it. Let's get people moving. Let's get people working again. And obviously, business travel is an important piece of the economy. So I think it's coming. And again, the expansion of vaccines to the 5 to 12-year-olds, I think, is really critical. And the credit of Contra Costa County, again, at almost 90% vaccinated in those eligible, we're doing a great job, and we just need to keep it up.
All right. Another question. What have been your biggest takeaways from your last 3 years in office?
That's such a good question. It's a hard one too. I think I had a colleague who he actually now is in Congress, who was from the other side of the aisle. And he and I remember sitting at coffee with him one day, and we said, God, I wish people could see us, right? And see how well we work together. He's a former computer engineer. We sat on the privacy committee together. The privacy committee, actually, for anyone who wants to tune in, is a fascinating place. There's very little partisanship in in the way we vote. You'll see us go different ways. It's just consumer protection and privacy. These aren't, issues that are really partisan. And this Republican who I served with on that committee had this amazing expertise in technology, which is obviously really important to a lot of the work we do when it comes to protecting consumer privacy. And, we do work really well together. Do we agree all the time? Absolutely not. I'm not going to say that, but we do respect one another and we listen to one another. And I think that that's my takeaway, is that a lot of what we see on the news and the divisiveness out there, especially when it comes to local politics, and those of you who are local electeds, or, it's not there. And I wish more people could take that away. Because so much of what is, I think, hurting us these days is the divisiveness, when really we agree on so much more than we disagree on. And the more we can find that common ground, I think the better off we'll be as a community and a nation. And I see that every day in Sacramento.
I think that is the questions we have submitted. We'll take 1 second in case someone else wants to drop one in chat or Q&A, or if Stuart or Greg have any remaining, but I think that's the end of the Q&A section.
Thanks, Katie. You got to see my incredible team, which is so fun because they really are awesome. Call us if you need us.
Rebecca, thank you so much for your time today. We learned a lot. We really appreciate it. And we hope you'll come back next year, hopefully in person.
That. Yes.
And before I turn it over to Greg, just a few closing comments. As many of you may know, the state of California is going through redistricting right now. And our fellow chambers in the Tri-Valley have been calling and writing letters to the commissioners. We want to keep Rebecca as our assembly person. And so we're working hard on doing that. And we're fortunate to have you. I'm amazed at everything that you do, especially with 3 children. I have 2 grandchildren, and that's more than I can handle once a week. So amazing job. I also want to thank Maria Cooper from Above and Beyond Productions. Maria does all of our technical stuff behind the scenes. And so she does a fantastic job. So for any of your videographer needs, there's Maria right there. Thank you, Maria. Great job. And I'd like to turn it over to Greg for any closing comments. And thank you again for your support, your sponsorship of this event. It wouldn't have been possible without you. So thank you so much.
Oh, Stuart, we appreciate it. And, I'll just want to thank the Assemblywoman. She did a fantastic job. I took notes on everything and a lot of great points that we obviously agree on. And especially when it comes to the fires and waterworks and homelessness, and it's something that we're working on all the time. And I think you're in the right direction. We appreciate your leadership and the things that you're doing for us. But San Ramon Chamber, you guys doing a great job, and you are keeping a lot of our small businesses interconnected. And I think that that's super valuable as well. I think if one particular shop doesn't have a particular item, that they have a partnership with another local shop, and they're able to say, hey, look, we can't service you right now, but go over here. And, we're out of tires, go over here to this other tire shop, or, whatever the case may be. And I think that the chamber, it does a wonderful job at that. So I just want to say thank you from us, from the Contra Costa Association of Realtors. We really appreciate it, but I'll let you close it out. It's your show, and thank you for giving us the platform time.
Well, thank you, Greg. And Rebecca, any closing comments? Anything else you'd like to say before we conclude?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to both of you and to all the chamber members. As I said, it's been an incredibly challenging year, and you all have been so wonderful and such great partners to me and to our cities and everybody who's worked hard to get us back on our feet. And we continue to do that work, but it's fun to be with you. I'm excited to be back in person next year. I know that's where we're headed, and make those vaccine appointments if you haven't. Thanks, everyone.
Well, thank you so much. And Caitlin and Jordan, thank you for everything as well. And with that, I did get my vaccination, my booster the other day. It took all of about 5 minutes. So I encourage everybody to do that. So again, thank you so much. And we'll do this again more often next year. So with that said, everyone have a great day and be safe out there. Thank you.